What's up guys, I'm BTC. Trying to copy what the pros do can sometimes be helpful, but it can also cause some problems. Whenever you're trying to get better at a game, it makes perfect sense that you should try to emulate the players who are at the top tier, the professional level of that game. And it doesn't matter what kind of game it is, first-person shooter or MOBA or fighting game, whatever, it doesn't matter. You always try to look at those top-tier players because they've already figured out what works, what doesn't work, how to counter this and that, and what strategies you should be implementing. So it makes perfect sense to try to do what they do, but there are some issues with that. And it might end up actually being detrimental to try to fully emulate everything they do. So let's focus on Overwatch specifically. The first and likely biggest issue is that whatever pro you're trying to emulate, your teammates are not going to be anywhere near as good as his. And that causes a lot of problems, because there are a lot of different situations where that pro player you're trying to emulate can make a decision based on the knowledge that his team, his healer, his tank, his DPS, whatever it happens to be, is going to support him, or they're going to function in a certain way, or they're going to be able to do certain things that your teammates are never going to be able to do. So he can rely on that and make those decisions, and if you try to do what he does, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. For example, let's say that your team is running some version of Dive. You're playing as Winston, you have a D.Va, a Genji, a Tracer, an Ana, and a Zenyatta on your team. You, as the Winston, if you're a professional or even a top 500 Grandmaster player, when you dive the enemy back line, you know that the D.Va and the Genji are going to go with you. You know that they're likely going to focus the same target as you to try to burn them down and get that elimination. You also can reasonably assume that the Ana is going to get a good amount of healing done on you, so you can probably stay in the fight a little bit longer. Let's look at if that was a gold team. You dive into the enemy backline as Winston, there's no guarantee that the D.Va is gonna dive with you. Even if you're in voice comms, there's no guarantee that it's gonna happen. There's no guarantee that the Genji isn't off on the side trying to do some crazy flanking mission. That the Ana is trying to actually heal you instead of dealing DPS. And there's no guarantee that the Ana, even if he's trying to heal you, will be able to actually hit you with those heals. If you try to perfectly emulate the strategy, the tactics of that pro player, that top 500, then you're going to end up getting destroyed. And it's not because your team is trying to throw or because they're being uncooperative, it's because they simply aren't at the level of skill as the teammates that the pro has. So if you try to do exactly what they're doing, it's simply not going to work. The second major issue is the difference in mechanical skill and the potential that the average person has versus someone who is at a professional level. And this is very comparable to people who casually play sports on the weekends versus the multi-million-dollar pro athletes, the Olympic athletes, all that sort of stuff. We could practice, train for our entire lives, never be able to run or throw or do all that stuff as good as those professional athletes. Genetically, they just won the lottery in that department, right? Their bone and muscle structure is just better suited for that. Some people are born naturally able to do these certain things. Other people can train to it, but a lot of people just will never achieve that level of mechanical skill. And for a game like Overwatch, it happens to do with your reaction time, your twitch reflexes, all that sort of stuff. It's not the same as running really fast, but it's still definitely a mechanical control that you just simply can't overcome, right? You can train it to get better, but there's a limit to what your body can do. When you watch some of these pro players using Widow, Genji, Tracer, they're playing at a mechanical skill that the rest of us simply can never hope to achieve. It doesn't matter how much you train, you're just never going to get there. But that definitely does not mean you shouldn't be trying. You should always be trying to improve, to push that envelope and get better. Just don't be so completely disappointed when you're not able to get that 4K with Widow and you saw some pro player do it in the Overwatch League, right? There's a different level of skill there that you just have to be able to accept. So should you still be trying to copy and emulate the pro players? Yes, absolutely. But you have to take into consideration what your situation is going to be. Don't just blindly try to copy what they do. Instead, you have to pay a lot more attention to what's going on in your situation. If you're trying to run that dive, the Winston example that I gave before, you have to communicate a lot more with your team in order to get everybody on the same page. At the pro level, they already know what they're doing. Your team in silver, gold, plat, whatever it happens to be, they may not fully grasp what needs to be done. So make sure you're communicating with that diva, with that Genji. Tell them when you're going to leap in. Tell them who you're going after, so that way everybody can focus down the same target. You can still run the similar strategy, it's just going to take a lot more communication in order to get it actually completed. You also can't take as great risks as some of those pros do. Because again, your Ana may or may not be able to actually heal you. So don't stay out there in the fight for too long. Make sure you're able to disengage whenever you need to, because not dying is one of the most important things that you can do in this game. One of the best things you can learn from watching these high skill players is what targets they choose to engage, when they engage them, and what direction, all that sort of stuff. Why did he go after the Zen instead of the Ana? That's something that you can directly incorporate into your gameplay without having to worry too much about the mechanical skill differences or even what your team is doing, right? They made a decision to go after this target first because it was more important for such and such reason. Those are the sorts of things that you should be trying to learn from watching the Overwatch League or these high skill live streams, all that sort of stuff. As far as improving your mechanical skill, there's kind of a limit that you can get from actually practicing in Overwatch, because you need to be able to do things rapidly, repetitively, and there's really no game environment, whether it's the arcade, quick play, custom matches, whatever. There really isn't anything all that good in Overwatch to practice. So if you want to improve your mechanical skill, your aim particularly, then I would suggest using something outside, like Aim Hero is a game you can find on Steam. It's only $5, and no, they're not sponsoring this or anything. I just think it's a good tool to use, which is why I'm telling you guys about it. So the next time you're watching a professional player, the Overwatch League, Top 500 live stream, whatever it happens to be, think more about why they are making the decisions that they're making instead of how to do it. The why is often going to be a lot more important, because that is something that you can incorporate into your own gameplay regardless of what your team is doing or what your mechanical skill is. So now I'm curious, how many of you guys watch professional players' top 500 streams in order to learn? And with the information I just gave today, is it going to change how you look at those streams? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.